Welcome back, everyone, to Daily Harmony. You know the drill. Our journey through A Course in Miracles continues.
And today we're really diving deep into Lesson 124.
Let me remember. I am one with God.
Yeah, powerful stuff.
It really is. I feel like yesterday we were just talking about seeing truly, right? Like recognizing the Christ in everyone.
Yeah, and this lesson feels like a natural progression. You know what I mean?
Totally. Like
Yeah.
if we're really trying to look past all the illusions, all the stuff that separates us, to see that inherent goodness in everybody, well then this whole idea that we're fundamentally one with God, it just clicks, right?
It makes so much sense. Like we've been peeling back those layers of perception and questioning everything we thought we knew about ourselves and each other.
Right. And now, bam, lesson 124 comes along and it's like, okay, time for an even bigger step.
It really is. It's a big one.
Yeah.
Because it's asking us to consider at the deepest level that our very essence is intertwined with God.
I'll admit, when I first really sat down with that idea, it was a little overwhelming. Like, wow.
It can be. It's a huge concept to wrap your head around.
So I guess what I'm wondering is, for people who are maybe encountering this for the first time, what's the core idea here? You know, what are we really trying to get at when we say, let me remember I am one with God?
Well, at its heart, what this lesson is pointing to is the idea that our true self, who we really are,
Yeah.
isn't this separate, isolated entity just battling its way through the world.
Okay.
It's more like our spirit, our deepest nature. It's an integral part of something much bigger, the divine source, It's not something that we have to achieve or work towards. It's not like some future goal or anything.
So it's more like remembering something we already are.
Exactly. That's a
Yeah.
great way to put it. It's like we've just temporarily misplaced this awareness.
I love that. Temporarily misplace this awareness?
Like losing your keys or something.
It's a much better way to think about it than like we have to climb this huge mountain to get there.
Right.
Okay, so if this feeling of being separate, of being this kind of isolated individual, if that's not really who we are, then what is? What does it actually mean to embrace this true identity of being one with God?
Well, from this perspective, our true identity is totally spiritual and connected to everything. It's about those qualities that we often associate with, God or the divine, that boundless love, that really deep peace, and this sense of inherent unity with everything.
I mean, who wouldn't want that?
Exactly. It's about recognizing that we're not limited by our physical bodies or the stories our minds tell us. All those fearful narratives we get caught up in.
Yeah, it's like that same life force, that loving energy, it's in all of us.
Precisely.
So instead of seeing ourselves as these little islands, constantly worried about protecting our borders, we're really all part of the same continent.
That's a great analogy.
But here's the thing, right? It can be really hard to wrap our heads around this idea of oneness. Like, why is it so important?
Well, that's the million-dollar question, isn't it?
Yeah. What changes when we start to really grasp this idea of oneness?
It's pretty profound because when we're operating from that belief that we are separate, that we're all on our own, it's like we're seeing the world through this lens of fear.
It's true.
Like threats everywhere. We're always on guard, feeling like we have to compete and protect ourselves.
I'm judging everyone.
Oh, yeah, totally.
Yeah.
Judging others based on how different they seem from us. But when we start to remember our oneness, that whole foundation, that fear-based foundation, it crumbles. It really does.
Okay, I'm listening.
You start to see that interconnectedness in everything.
You mean like
whatever we do to someone else, we're ultimately doing to ourselves.
Oh, wow.
And that understanding, it naturally leads to compassion, to understanding, to forgiveness.
It makes those fear-based reactions less intense.
Exactly. They start to lose their grip. And in their place, you get this growing sense of peace and love.
It's like a total transformation.
It is. And it changes not just how we feel inside, but also how we interact with everyone around us.
So in a way, it's like this illusion of separation is really the root of so much conflict and suffering in the world.
Absolutely.
So if we buy into that, if we believe that, how do we even begin to cultivate this remembering? It's not like we can just decide to feel one with everything. What are some practical steps we can take? I know the lesson talks about this a little bit.
It does. It gives us some very practical tools. Because you're right, we can't just flip a switch and suddenly feel one with everything.
It would be nice if it were that easy.
Right.
So what does the lesson suggest?
Well, one of the most powerful methods is meditation. Just taking a few minutes each day to consciously focus on this idea of being one with God.
Okay, what does that look like, practically speaking?
Well, You could try visualizing a light,
Yeah.
really radiant light representing the divine, and imagine it connecting with your own inner light.
I like that. That visual is really powerful.
And as you breathe, you can even try to imagine drawing in those feelings of unity, love, and peace. This practice, it helps to quiet down all the mental chatter, all that ego noise that keeps us feeling
Well,
separate.
it quiets the ego.
Yeah. And that allows a much deeper, more intuitive sense of connection to come through.
That makes a lot of sense. What other approaches does the lesson suggest?
Another practice it talks about is using affirmations.
Affirmations.
Yeah, creating and repeating statements that reinforce this idea of oneness. The lesson actually gives a great example. I am one with God. I am loved and supported in every moment.
It's simple but really powerful when you think about it.
Totally. Because when you regularly affirm this truth, you're directly challenging all those ingrained beliefs the ego has about separation. You're basically reprogramming your thinking with a more accurate understanding of reality.
So it's like actively retraining our minds.
Exactly.
Cool. Any other tips?
Absolutely. The lesson also emphasizes acts of kindness.
Interesting.
When we choose to be kind, especially when we're doing it with that awareness of our shared divine nature, it really reinforces this reality that we're interconnected.
Right.
It's like breaking down all those artificial barriers we create between ourselves and others and allowing ourselves to experience the unity that's already there.
And it's something we can do every day, right?
Totally. It's like putting this truth into action instead of just thinking about it.
I love that. So let's shift gears a little bit. How does remembering this oneness, this connection to God, how does it impact things like healing and forgiveness?
Yeah.
These are big topics, right?
Huge. And this is where it gets really practical because, when we truly remember our oneness, it totally changes how we see those concepts.
Okay. In what way?
Well, if we believe we are all separate, we tend to hold on to grievances, right?
Mhm.
We feel wronged, we feel victimized.
Mm-hmm.
But when we see that we're part of the same whole, it becomes so much harder to stay stuck in those feelings of resentment.
Like it would be illogical almost.
Right. We start to see that the pain another person is experiencing, it's like a reflection of the separation we're feeling within ourselves.
Yeah.
And forgiveness becomes less about condoning something and more about letting go of that suffering that's rooted in this illusion of separation.
You're not saying the harm didn't happen. You're just saying that forgiveness is about releasing yourself from the suffering of it.
Yes. It's about recognizing that shared humanity, that shared divinity, even in the people who have hurt us.
So it's not about them. It's about us.
Exactly. And that can be really freeing.
That makes forgiveness less of a burden we have to carry and more of a natural release.
Yeah. It's about understanding that fundamental connection.
And healing. Does this idea of oneness apply there too?
Definitely.
How so?
Healing, whether it's emotional or physical,
Yeah.
it can be helped by this awareness.
Interesting. Tell me more.
Well, when we connect with that deep sense of peace and love that comes from remembering our oneness, that we're part of something bigger,
Mm-hmm.
it can have a huge effect on our well-being.
Okay, I'm starting to get it. So we've talked about our inner experience, but what about how this changes the way we see other people? Does it change how we see our family, our colleagues, even strangers?
Oh, it absolutely does.
Mm.
Because when we consistently remember that same divine essence, that same spark resides in everyone, it makes us more compassionate and empathetic. It just comes naturally.
I can see that.
We begin to see past all those little differences and recognize that shared humanity, that spark of the divine within each person. And that leads to more understanding, more patience, more loving interactions in all of our relationships. It's really beautiful.
It sounds like acknowledging this connection can ripple outward and touch so many different parts of our lives in a really positive way.
It really can. It changes our inner world, our relationships, our outlook on life. It's like tapping into a source of peace and connection that's always been there.
Amazing.
It really is. Because ultimately, by remembering our oneness, we are transcending the limited view of the ego and aligning ourselves with a much deeper truth about who we are.
It's like realizing we're not alone, that we're inherently loved and supported.
Exactly.
Wow. This has been such a rich exploration of Lesson 124. It's so thought-provoking.
It is.
And I know the lesson ends with a really powerful question to help us integrate these ideas.
It does. And it's one we should all spend some time with.
Can you remind us what it is?
Of course. The lesson asks us to consider, what does it mean to you to be one with God? And how can embracing this truth change your daily interactions and experiences?
I love that question. And for our listeners, I really encourage you to sit with that, really ponder it after we finish today. Don't feel like you need to come up with an answer right away. Just let that question kind of percolate in your mind. See what insights and feelings come up. There's no right or wrong here.
Exactly.
It's about connecting with this idea of oneness in a way that feels personal and meaningful to you.
It's about moving beyond just understanding the concept intellectually and really letting it resonate in your heart.
This has been such an inspiring conversation. Thank you so much for breaking this down for us.
My pleasure. It's a lesson I keep coming back to. There's always something new to discover.
Well, to all of our listeners out there, thank you for joining us for another deep dive into A Course in Miracles.
We hope you found this helpful.
And if you did, please like, share, and subscribe. We really appreciate you spreading the word about these teachings.
And we'll see you back here tomorrow for more.
Until then, take care.